Good morning, traders. It is Monday morning, the 28th of September. It's 2.5 hours into the London trading session, so about 2.5 hours before New York opens, and I'm on the pound yen. This is one of the charts that I highlighted in my weekend review as a potential very strong momentum chart to the short. I've got my hourly chart as well as the weekly up. And what you can see that happened this morning is after price continued to come down, it did rally up on this hourly chart, hit the 55 EMA and also the top of the cloud, and start to reverse and come back down toward this trend line. In terms of the hourly chart, I'd like to see a lower close. I'd like to see it close below these prior levels, which are 182.62 level. I'm going to also be using my 30, my 15, my 5 to see if there's a potential entry if the momentum to the short continues. I want to point out that we do have a stochastic in our slingshot position, and we have had the band touch on the hourly. So we have an hourly slingshot in play now, and I'm going to try to find a low time frame entry so that I can trade into the significant weekly momentum that we have to the short. Here is our 30-minute chart showing this rally and price coming back down below the Tenkan and the Kijun. Here's the 15-minute. I'm on the 30-minute, the 15-minute a lot in terms of determining where I have signals to trade into short momentum, and then I use the 5, the 3, the 1 to look at an entry. What I see happen, as I showed you on our hourly, our 30, and now the 15-minute, is the inability of price to sustain this little rally to this point. That doesn't mean that it's over. I can see like a visual trend line here and this rally up, but given the extreme bearishness of this chart on the high time frames, I would much rather wait for the right short than be doing a counter trend long until I had more evidence that price really was ready to rally further to long. It's 3 hours into the London session now, and I'm just watching this. I'm interested in what price does in this zone between 182.90 up through a little above the figure. So I'm just watching right now. Still watching. Haven't entered this short. We do see the price reacted in the zone that I had marked out. It's a little too close to the figure for me to enter here. I really would prefer to wait and see if there's not an attempt to take out this prior high just a little bit below the 183. But if we come all the way down and get under and hold under this trend line, then I would look to enter short at that point. For now, I'm hoping that there's another swing higher and that I can get in somewhere above the 183 level. Here's the update 3.5 hours into London. On this hourly chart, it looks like we've got a chance of a lower close here. I'd like to see the bottom of this candle taken out, a close lower than these, and then we'd have an hourly signal. I often, seeing the momentum that's in play, will go ahead and use a low time frame chart to get in early and trade down to that, and I'm going to see if I can't do that now. And I've entered short at 182.63 with an 8 pip stop. We have price moving fairly well, up 13 pips now, hitting the 182.50. This is 1, 2, 3, the 4th time that's hit that, so I'm hoping that this paves the way. Ultimately, I'm looking for that 180 level. This is a day trade with an 8 pip stop, so I'm not going to get greedy. I would, at this point, be looking at, from my first target, to be at the 182. And we're up 20 pips. I mean, you can see this is moving fast. I entered this trade, I think, 5 minutes ago. So we've got 20 pips on an 8 pip stop. So if I closed it right now, I'd have a 2.5 hour trade, after being open for a few minutes and after watching for stalking, for an entry for an hour or so. Here's a look at the daily, and I'm really looking for a retest of this prior daily low, which comes in around 181.55. As I said before, I'm not going to get greedy on this, but I think we've got a good chance throughout the day of moving toward that target. Price now at 182.42, up 21 pips. We have price moving up and challenging my entry. I'm just keeping everything where it is right now, hoping that it will resume the short momentum and take me to the figure. It's retesting back around this 180.50 level. We're coming up at 7 o'clock, which would be 4 hours into the London session, an hour before New York. Price is doing some short price action after its retrace. I don't know if it's going to continue down, challenge these lows, or whether it'll come back up and take me out. I had a chance to close this a little over a 2-hour trade when it came down to 182.38, but I think that there's a probability that this trade is going to go on to the figure, and I was willing to let that 2-hour trade go and hold on for what could be a much nicer return on this trade. Hitting the 20 pip level again. I'm hoping to get about at least 50 pips out of this. Alright, and we are challenging the prior low. We're at 182.38, which is 25 pips from my entry. We hit 30 pips on this trade and backed off a little. This is the point at which I start to pay more attention to taking a hard scale or closing the trade. I'm pretty happy whenever I get a 4-hour trade, so I'm going to be watching as price gets down to the 182.30 level, and I may just go ahead and close that and take a 4-hour. It depends on what the price action is. If price just blows through, then I'm going to ride it, but I'm going to try to protect a 4-hour trade if I can. Okay, we've hit 30 pips. You can see I've got a little red line coming up at that 30. This is the level I'm going to be watching to potentially close this trade or at least take a hard scale. Okay, this is how trade management goes. We didn't quite hit my level. I'm unscaled on this, and price is coming back up to this 182.50 level. So again, I'm just hoping that that with the momentum that we have on so many different time frames now, that the short move will continue. We have moved about 100 pips from the high of the day. Okay, we're making another swing down. As you can see, we came back up pretty close to my entry at 182.35 now, so approaching 20 pips again. I'm hoping this time it takes it out. And at this time of day, which is a half hour before New York, an hour before data, and the pair's already moved 100 pips, which isn't a lot for this pair, but it has moved 100 pips. So when I get to a 4R, hopefully it will get to that, I'm going to be aggressive about closing this trade unless momentum is showing me that it's just going to keep blowing through, and I'll be monitoring that on a 1-minute chart. Okay, I took 2/3 off this trade at 33 pips. I'm going to move my stop into break even now. Stop is moved in a little closer, locking in a minimum 2.5 return on the entire trade. I'm watching this pretty closely now because I really am happy when I have a 4-hour trade, and we are 15 minutes ahead of New York Open and 45 ahead of some significant data releases. Up 40 pips on the remaining third. Okay, we've just hit the New York Open, and prices just consolidating on this very low time frame, the 5-minute, around the 182.30 level. I have 2/3 of my trade off already at 33 pips, and I'm hoping that we go on down to the figure, but we do have data coming up at 8:30, and that could move this in either direction. My study of price action, I'm over a 10-year trader now, and I do watch price action. Always have, and I always will, because I continue to learn from it. When we have a chart like the pound yen, where we have short momentum in so many different time frames. It gives me more confidence in holding for price to continue to move into the momentum and into the trend. If I didn't have that confidence, I would have closed this at 1 to 3 or when I had the 1 to 4. But I think we do have a good chance of at least going down to the figure and perhaps lower depending on what data release shows. I have set a hard target at 181.90. That would be 73 pips. I've just gone ahead and closed this trade. What I see happening on the 5-minute chart is price is making higher highs and higher lows in these individual candles, coming across the Tenkan, paving the way for it to retest the Kijun. And I'm happy with the return that I got. I averaged 28 pips on this trade. That gives me 3.5 R. My goal, my target for each day is at least a 3R. 3R, 4R is what I'm looking for on the day. I normally don't trade Monday, so this is a bonus day for me. Wishing all of you the best, and I just wanted to give you an idea of how to use the weekly scan that I showed you on a daily basis for intraday small time frame trades.